So I'm here today with Matthew Phillips, who is one of our best clients, who we partner with. So my name's Rory, founder of The Career Agent. We're a recruitment and career coaching business, and we're partnering with Matt to help him find a head of clients. So we're doing this interview to show a bit more about the business to you, the candidates. So Matt, my first question to you is, what was your reason for starting your PR business?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I've done PR for nearly 20 years now, in a number of different roles in-house. I've worked independently and I've worked in agencies as well. And one consistent theme is that I've found startups are particularly underserviced in PR. A couple of reasons for that. Primarily that startups probably need more kind of hand-holding and support in PR than most do. But when startups tend to go to PR agencies, they tend to be left with relatively junior teams and tend to receive quite poor service. So there was a sort of an opportunistic gap in the market that I'd sort of identified. But the primary reason is that I just love new businesses. I love helping new businesses. I love helping particularly cause-led founders to kind of bring their story to life, and tell that story through the media. So those two things sort of came together at about the same time. And having thought, I don't really want to start a PR agency, I thought actually there's something quite interesting and scalable here that I could do, that kind of is in my heart what I wanted to do, is which is set up small companies. So those things all came together about the same time, and that's where the company came from.
Okay, I want to talk more about the company in a bit, because for the person watching this that may want to work for you, it's really interesting to hear about your motivations to start it, where you think the company's going. But let's talk a little bit about the role, which is it's called head of media. So do you mind telling me, I mean, you don't need to go into the job spec, but the reason for why the role is needed in your company?
Well, broadly speaking, we've designed the company to be quite scalable, and what we want to do is specialize in verticals, whether it's finance, education, sport, whatever it may be, but to help startups in those categories. And the way that we've decided to make this model work is around two key hires in each area. One is a head of clients, whose focuses pretty much on client management, account management, the strategy, and a head of media, which is largely media relations focused, tactical, and it's kind of being our eyes and ears out in the world. And the idea is that around this partnership, we build practices. So what we're now looking for in this role is someone who loves that startup world, and has a feeling for how to get stories away for smaller companies, and will work alongside our head of clients to mold and create stories that are going to be relevant for the client's business, but also going to be interesting to the media. So it's a kind of a yin and yang of strategy and tactics that will work in partnership, and then supported and complemented by the freelancers in our network who bring skills like copywriting and media relations and strategic counsel to bear as well. So it forms those teams. So the head of media is a really critical role for this company.
Okay, amazing. So just to define the roles a bit more, so there's you, the CEO, and then the head of clients is Sneha.
That's right.
A little word about her and how her work's going to be amazing, because the head of media will be working with / for the head of clients.
I mean, yeah. So Sneha joined us back in April. Thanks, Rory, for bringing her into the business, because she's done a superb job for us. She's a fantastic client handler and a great strategist, and is a dream to work around. And she not only is she a lovely person, but she's seriously shit hot, in that she is superb at managing clients. She's got 20 years experience in tech PR. She set up Huawei's sort of PR function in the EU and grew it from, the Chinese dipping their toes into the water to becoming a serious, seriously large consumer brand. And has grown startup agencies as well. So what she doesn't know about PR probably isn't worth knowing. So she is a superb person to work alongside, and a huge asset to the company. So yeah, absolutely thrilled to have her, and she's doing a superb job for us. But what we definitely need is that, that person to help her out on the media relations side of things. I think working for her is probably the biggest pull of this job, frankly.
Well, so because on the career coaching side of my business, I help people. A lot of people leave jobs because they don't have a great manager, a great boss they can work with, be empowered by, who listens to them, who pushes them when needed, all of those things. So Sneha is definitely a huge pull there. But also, it's going to be hard for you to say I'm great. But I can vouch. Maybe not. But my question, rather than about you saying you're amazing, is how do you think you've got the company to this point? How have you changed? What do you put the success of the business? How do you think you've adapted to make this work over the years to get to where it is now?
Yeah, I think it's partly experience, in terms of all the different roles that I've done. I've learned a lot about PR in the process. So as a practitioner, I'm pretty experienced. I'm still learning how to be a business leader and entrepreneur, and I've learned in the last couple of years quite a lot about how to do that. I think the challenge has been for me over the last couple of years, or year in particular, has been sort of stepping back from it and giving the team enough structure to be able to perform, and do the right things, but without being task managed and supervised, which I hate and have always hated as an employee. And I was terrible at being task managed. So I was always much better with a kind of much more, here's the values of the business, here's the purpose of the business, this is what we stand for, crack on and get on with it. That I like that kind of leadership rather than, being stood over and supervised. I've never liked that particularly. So we've tried to create a culture here where people are given that independence, but are also given the structure. So I don't tend to get very hands-on at all when it comes to client work, but obviously I'm there to support the team. So I sort of see myself, certainly when it comes to doing client work, as more of a kind of coach and advisor to the people. I think you hire really good people and let them get on with it, and we definitely try and do that here. I think another factor is that I try to be perhaps almost too open sometimes about how the business is performing, what the objectives are. So we're very, very clear about what our purpose and aims are. We've got a pretty solid business plan that we're working to, and we work to very clear quarterly objectives where it's very clear who's accountable for what. So we're trying to get even more precise about that, so that everyone can see literally how every minute is spent, how that contributes to the growth of the company overall. So we're quite inclusive in our internal communications and the way that I try to run the company that way. So, I think that also helps.
I think that's really good for people to see, again, how you're trying to run the business in an open way, in an honest way, being open about performance and that sort of thing, but also letting people get on with their work rather than standing over them with a clipboard saying, well, why haven't you done that? But obviously there's a balance there. So yeah, but a big part of this role is working with your clients, getting inspired about what they do, and getting the message out there with speaking with journalists, etc., etc. So do you mind just giving us a quick insight into the kind of clients, like what's exciting about working with your clients?
Well, typically our clients are startups at a certain point in their development. So these are startups that for the most part have a clear sense of destiny. So they know what they're trying to do in the world. They know, and I use the phrase disruption with a little bit of care, because it's not disruption in sense of destroying a $16 billion business and replacing it with a $2 billion one, which you're the only company in there. It's not about new robber barons or monopolies. It's more about trying to achieve something very specific and based on personal experience. So a founder is sort of, I suppose, similar to me, has identified something that they don't like in the market and is sort of creating a company as a way to remedy that. So there's something in the founders that we try to work with that have that in them and are very sort of purpose and cause led. So it's not like in the way that brand purpose and cause, it doesn't have to be save the planet, but it has to have a clear from the heart drive. It's a credible thing that the founder is driven to do. So that's one. The second part is that the scale of their growth, they're typically in and around Series A. So they've got a proven product market fit as a company, and are at that point where they're now trying to raise a bit of brand awareness, at which point PR becomes quite a cost-effective vehicle for them, provided they could do PR cost-effectively. So they've got enough traction for a journalist to take them seriously. They've got enough flair to stand out, and they're, I suppose, open-minded and reasonable enough to recognise that as a non-famous company, it's going to be a bit of a harder journey for them to get coverage and get taken seriously. So those are the three things really that we look for in the kind of perfect clients. It's not defined by vertical or market. It's quite broad because there's a sort of standard way you can tell a startup story and bring that to life in the press that doesn't require expert market knowledge. So that's sort of how we pick our clients. And as such, it's quite exciting. So it will challenge you. It's not a case of just picking up the phone and saying, oh, I've got another story from Google, will you print it? Which is easy. You have to really get under the bonnet of what is the story here? How can we improve the content? How can we make this company more attractive? And then sell that through the relationships that we build with the journalists. So in this role, it's very much a public role. It's very much being out there on social media, being recognized as a person of influence, or the opportunity to become a person of influence in that marketplace by getting to know these journalists, by feeding them stories every day. So I think it's a real opportunity for someone who really lives and breathes the startup world and is excited by building new businesses.
And as you said, it's not just one type of industry. You know, there's everything from, as we've discussed, electric cars to posh pepper armies. So yes. that's a real mix in terms of the kind of companies that they'll be working with. So there's lots of variety there.
Absolutely right, yeah, and many more to come. And we've got fintech clients as well. So there's a real breadth there.
So okay, fantastic. So what we're going to do is put this video out to attract people who want to work in a open, client-driven, startup-focused, positive, friendly group of people who want to make a difference to companies that have an excellent vision. And hopefully, if people do well in the interview process, they will meet you in the second or third stage. So thank you very much for doing this interview. It's been a pleasure. And